April Ryan, White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks, and former Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton, also a former member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Colonel Leighton, let me start with you. What does all this mean for General Kelly's credibility?
It really hurts it, Aaron. I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't get the memo that said that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is now the press secretary for Erdogan or for Putin. I mean, this is a really bad thing. You have to work with the facts. The facts are the key thing here, and anybody who has been in the military and especially has worked in operations like General Kelly has knows that we rely on facts, and we have to also respect facts, no matter whether they are facts that we like or facts that we don't like. This becomes a key issue for him, and I think it's very important for him to set the record straight, even though this particular aspect of it was not necessarily of his own doing.
So, April, I mean, I think it's pretty important what the Colonel just said, and I want to play a little bit more of the exchange between the CBS reporter today and Sarah Sanders. He was pointing out that not only did Congresswoman Wilson not talk about funding when it came to the building, but that the funding for the building was actually secured before she was even in Congress. So she really even didn't have anything to do with it. Here's a part of that.
Oh, he was wrong yesterday in talking about getting the money. The money was
secured. If you want to go after General Kelly, that's up to you. But I think that if you want to get into a debate with a four-star Marine general, I think that's something highly inappropriate.
April, it was a stunning moment. I mean, I used the words military dictatorship, and we thought about how we used it. I mean, it's a stunning thing to say.
It is stunning. It's stunning on the part where Sarah says, if you want to go after the general, if you want to get in a debate with him, it's not getting into a debate or it's not going after him. It's just a search for answers to what he stated that may have been a misspeak. And, the issue is it's inappropriate to ask him questions or question him about it. He was just in the briefing room yesterday, taking questions from those he picked who he wanted to take questions from those who knew Gold Star families. So that point is moot. So Sarah got that wrong. But let me say this. The White House press corps is the first line of questioning an American president and those who are in that building. Now, let's say General Kelly, yes, he is a four-star general, but let's say he was on the battlefield, and he had top secret information he couldn't share. That's one thing to say he will not take questions at that point. But when you are in the people's house, the taxpayer's house, and you're working for an American president that is elected by the people, you are to answer questions. And now it's unfortunate that the credibility of the chief of staff is now in question. And the question, people want to see receipts or see proof of what he said.
Right. Well, look, there's the facts that were wrong, whether he remembered it wrongly, whatever it may be, the facts were wrong. There's also the hypocrisy, which I know I harp on, but to take act as if you're taking the high road and your integrity is unimpeachable, and what someone else is doing is so horrific when your own boss is doing it left and right is problematic. John, the president spoke today to the Fox Business Network. He was asked about General Kelly and the press conference, and here's what the president responded. Here's the quote. He is a very elegant man. Looks like a word he took from Tom Barrack. He is a tough, strong four-star Marine. You're a four-star Marine. You've got something special to start off with, okay? General Mattis, General Dunford also, but very few. He was so offended because he was in the room when I made the call, and so were other people. And the call was a very nice call. He was so offended that somebody would be listening in the call. Offended someone would be listening in on the call at the behest of the family. Kelly himself was listening in on the call at the behest of the president. But he's offended about the other side.
Yeah, I mean, look, the hypocrisy runs deep here. Congresswoman happens to be a very close family friend of long standing. This was not political grandstanding.
This young man since very early in his life. His father, his family, to be clear.
That's exactly right. And the family was listening to it on the speakerphone. So, yes, the president may not have known the congresswoman was in the earshot, but that's really irrelevant. I mean, best case scenario, we've got people missing each other. Obviously, the president's intention wasn't bad, but the family felt disrespected because he didn't use the soldier's name, because he referred to the widow as your guy as opposed to your husband. Tonally, they missed each other. But over and over again, when Kelly gets brought out, he's a man with enormous moral authority because of his service, because of his sacrifice. And clearly, the president pushed him out to do his dirty work and defend him. But in the process, Kelly undercuts his own moral authority that comes from being someone above politics. someone above partisanship. And it diminishes the whole debate that we've had 3 days on this, when we should be honoring the soldiers. We should be getting the facts of what happened on the ground.
Yes.
And when he comes out and says, no one respects women anymore, no one respects Gold Star families anymore, again, you're just setting yourself up for a whole series of hypocrisy when it comes to this president as a candidate or in office.
April, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders actually just sent an email to CNN and said in response to this, okay, so she says, quote, of course, everyone can be questioned, but after witnessing General Kelly's heartfelt and somber account, we should all be able to agree that impugning his credibility on how best to honor fallen heroes is not appropriate. April.
I'm glad Sarah is watching, and Sarah, you are absolutely right. He's a four-star general, but he came into that briefing room. You gave the podium to the general that Thursday, Sarah, and the general took questions from those he pointed out who were new Gold Star family members. This is not myth. This is not conjecture. People saw this. He said things that were in question, and we just want to find out the true answers to it.
Right.
There is a credibility issue with the president. Now there's a possible credibility issue with the chief of staff. In order to clean it up, let him take questions, Sarah. That's all we're asking. We're not trying to debate. We're not trying to impugn him. We're not trying to hurt him. We just want the facts to what happened. He is a four-star general, as you said.
And they're trying to
sacrifice
conflate,
himself.
it seems, John. They're trying to conflate, to basically say that questioning him based on the facts of what he said is questioning somehow his personal experience, which is somber and is deeply personal, and no one is questioning.
No.
Those two things are not the same thing.
No,
and they cannot be allowed to conflate that in the minds of the public.
And that is explicitly what they're trying to do. There is universal respect for General Kelly's sacrifice and his service and the loss of his son. But to say in any instance from the White House podium that it's inappropriate to question a four-star general who now is serving in a civilian capacity as chief of staff, that is the job of the press corps. That is the job of the American people in a civilian-led military, and there is no person and no fact that is off limits to question to get to the truth.
And Colonel, there is the issue here also of the hypocrisy given some of the president's actions and the very things that General Kelly is outraged about. I mentioned a couple of them. One of them, though, was that the whole issue here was that he went on for 2 minutes about how stunned and offended he was that this congresswoman, who he dubbed an empty barrel, would brag about her role in obtaining funding. Forget the fact that she didn't do it. It's actually not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is he found that to be deeply offensive. What then does that make this?
Well, you have...
They did a poll. I'm like the most popular person with the vets. I built the Vietnam Memorial in downtown Manhattan, okay? And the vets like me a lot.
One of the reasons I was very much involved in building the Vietnam Memorial in New York, as you know, you probably remember. And to this day, people that fought in Vietnam are always thanking me for that.
Colonel, if that would be incredibly offensive to General Kelly, it would seem.
You would think so. I mean, the whole idea here is that people should be accurate about what they're doing. Whether they actually did something that benefits charity or the vets in this case of President Trump. That's great, and that's if you really did that, that's fantastic. But the issue here is you have to be truthful, and the key victim in this, I think, is the truth. We have to make sure. In the military, we're taught to be operationally accurate. As an intelligence officer, I was always taught to make sure that everything I said was 100% correct to the best of my ability. And that is really the ethos that we should be dealing with here. This idea that facts don't matter is something that is corrosive not only to our institutions, but to our very democracy itself. And that is something that really has to change, because we cannot function on half-truths, on lies, or on hypocrisy.
All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time tonight. And next, the breaking news that we have in the investigation into the Niger ambush, which truly is at the heart of all of this. We now know the body of one of the soldiers, Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, was found a mile away. How did that happen? Plus, the CIA director warning Americans to be ready for North Korea's, quote, final step. And after Presidents Obama and Bush slammed President Trump, the White House seems to be the only ones not getting their hint.
Our understanding is that those comments were not directed towards the president.